All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Um, we'll give maybe one more minute for folks to join, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, I will start sharing my screen. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So thank you for joining. This meeting is about the safety project that we have going on for Marion Barry Avenue Southeast. It's a corridor safety project, and it's led in partnership by TESD, which is the Traffic Engineering and Safety Division, and the Planning and Sustainability Division at DDOT. And this is an effort to look at one of the streets on our high injury network, especially in Ward 8, that's very critical to safety in the neighborhood. So the focus area for our study is between Minnesota Avenue and Alabama Avenue. Hopefully you're here because you got a mailer or saw us at an ANC meeting or got other information through your neighbors or ANCs or civic association. But however you got here, thank you for coming. We appreciate you spending time with us tonight. So starting on the project limits, so we start at Minnesota and we go all the way down to Alabama, looking at issues that we've heard from you all in the past through our TSI program, through the safety walks that we had earlier this year, and trying to address some of the safety issues that we've heard from you, as well as the data that we've seen from crashes along the corridor. So we have 6 signalized intersections. We've got 7 that are two-way stop control, which means only the side streets stop, but Marion Barry does not. And this is separate from the bus project that is on Minnesota Avenue and the rest of Marion Barry, as well as the planning study that you all may have seen that's closer down towards MLK and Marion Barry intersection. There's a couple things to note. So DC law has changed in 2 ways, and we're just looking to use this project as we do all active projects to kind of update our streets to reflect the current law. So DC law requires removal of parking through all either stop sign controlled or signalized intersections, at least 25 feet from a crosswalk. And that helps with visibility for drivers to see people crossing the street and people crossing the street to see drivers. So we can all be able to stop for one another. And the second thing is DC Council has mandated no turn on red at all signalized intersections by 2025, unless DDOT can make some kind of safety case for maintaining turns on red. We heard some from the ANC 8A a couple weeks ago about this when I went over the concept briefly with them, but looking into that as well. So why are we focusing on Marion Barry Avenue? So Marion Barry is one of our high injury network corridors. So what does that mean? That means there's a high density, as you can see the map over here, if you can see my cursor, that shows all the crashes just in the previous 3 years to when we started this study. And there's a lot of crashes in this corridor. As you all know, if you live around here, you've certainly heard them, experienced them, seen them. And so we see a lot of crashes, mainly down here. You can see kind of how the crash data breaks out. We've got a lot of rear end crashes, about a third of them, sideswipe crashes, left turn crashes, parked vehicle crashes, some right turn crashes, and then a few pedestrian, bicycle, and what's called angle crashes. It's kind of like a T-bone style crash. So the main issues that we're seeing are vehicle-related crashes. We do see a lot of pedestrian crashes as well. That's why you'll see a focus on pedestrian safety and access to different landmarks and libraries, school, and bus stops as well. So we've heard from you previously. I went to the February ANC meetings, kicked off this project with everyone. as well as the Fair Lawn Civic Association. We had community walks in February, a virtual walk as well, one on a Saturday in person, a Monday in person in the morning, and then a virtual walk in the evening. We had an online map that was active, so you could tell us any safety issues that you experience. We took all the TSIs, the traffic safety inputs that anyone had put in for this stretch of the corridor. And then we sort of tagged on to the bus priority projects open house in October, just to get a preliminary look at what you all thought. We're coming to the November, December ANC meetings, Fair Lawn Civic Association, to let you all know about this, and hoping to hear more from you tonight, what you think. And then on Saturday, we'll have an in-person meeting. You can just drop in whenever. We'll be at the library at Anacostia Library from 11 a.m. to 12:30 in the large meeting room. So if you want to talk more, please do come by. What we heard from you and what you told us in all of these meetings, I won't read all of these, but kids don't feel safe crossing the street to get to Ketchum. We have siblings that are dropping their younger siblings off at Ketchum, going to school at Kramer and Anacostia. It doesn't feel safe to cross the street. Drivers go too fast on Marion Barry, especially on the hill near Marbury Plaza. The area near Skyland gets really congested. People are blocking lanes, trying to get in and out of the CVS. And the sidewalks can be often uneven and may have some tripping hazards as well. We heard some from bike community, the folks at Bike in Ward 8 as well, that it doesn't feel safe to bike on Marion Barry Avenue, and the routing in sort of into the neighborhood would feel less safe as well. So the goals of this project and all corridor safety projects are, number one, to reduce speeding. We want to also improve safety for people walking, taking the bus, driving down the street. We want to address safety and crash patterns at any complicated intersections that exist, any of those skews where you can't quite see. We want to remove or enhance safety, safety and visibility at uncontrolled turns from side streets. We have a lot of sightline issues, especially in the older area, the more historic Anacostia area of Marion Barry. So it's really important so that people can see when they're making their turns, so they don't get in crashes. Enhancing crosswalk safety so drivers and pedestrians can see one another much better, and improving bus service and access to the bus stops along the corridor. So we are hoping that this can be a quicker process, so that we don't have to go through a long and you have to wait years and years to see safety improvements to the street. So we're aimed at finishing up this concept this fall and winter, presenting a revised concept sometime in the new year, early in the new year. And then from there, starting the construction design plans and getting that built on the street. We are going to be doing this in a temporary treatment format, so that if there are changes or adjustments that we need to make after it's all implemented, we can evaluate that and come back and make those changes. That way we're not having to completely redo, a new curb and tear up the street again and again for construction. So these sort of temporary treatments and quick build treatments allow us to test things out before we go into kind of a major capital project, moving curbs and doing concrete and all of that. So we'll get into the draft concepts. I'll walk through these. Please put your questions in the chat as you go, or you can hold them till the end. I want to get through all the slides, and then we can talk about a couple comments and questions as we're able. A couple of ground rules. So please keep it civil. We're doing the project to improve safety. We do want your feedback. Like I said, put questions and comments in the chat, or you can hold your questions till the end. Just raise your hand to be unmuted, and then you can speak and ask your question. One key thing, for the street to get safer, we are going to have to make changes. You've told us it's not working how it is, and that may include some trade-offs. So you may not be able to turn everywhere that you typically do, but please know that these recommendations and these treatments are based on safety and what we know from research and what works. So if something doesn't work, let's work together and figure out some way that it can, or some way that we can make adjustments so that it could work maybe a little bit better. Um, we all know that we're the best drivers in the world. I'm sure you all are the best drivers in the world, but not everybody is. We know that people make mistakes, and those mistakes cause crashes. But the general principle of a Vision Zero city and a safe system approach is that those crashes shouldn't cost someone their life or their limb. And this project and the treatments that are recommended are really meant to reduce both the risk of crashes and the documented history of crashes that we see across the corridor. We want, even if a crash occurs, we don't want it to be severe, and we definitely don't want it to be fatal. So we want to reduce all of that and make for a better quality of life for you all, and a safer street. Okay. So we'll go ahead and start at Minnesota. So at Minnesota Avenue, this is the beginning of the project area. We'll establish a left turn lane here at Minnesota as you're heading away from MLK. Then after after you get through the intersection, we know a lot of people park along this, and it can tend to block up the intersection. So trying to keep people from parking through there and help traffic move through a little bit safer. There's an option for turns coming off of Minnesota. This is a right turn only lane as you're coming off of Minnesota Avenue, and you're not allowed to make left turns. So there's an option to either do a curb extension, which is a little bump out that you see there in blue, or which you'll see on the online map, I believe, we can do a median island that would really prevent people from holding up traffic and making the left turn when they're not even supposed to be doing that. So we ask about that in our feedback form. I'd love to hear feedback on that as well. So please let us know what you think of this. Most of the corridor you'll see is still a single lane in each direction, just as it functions today. But marking out the parking really helps to visually narrow the street, and that way people travel slower in general. All right, heading towards Ketchum. So Ketchum is over here off of 15th Street. And then over here at 16th, that's where the new development's happening. This is the piece of 16th Street that is one way away from Marion Barry. And then the other piece of 16th down here with the bus stop and heading towards the laundromat is over down here. So in this area, first near Ketchum, we're looking at a signal for this location. We have to study this, and there's a couple other locations across the street that you'll see. They need to pass a certain set of tests or warrants, like we call them, to be able to qualify for a signal, and that's a federal requirement. But if it does pass, that's something that we would prioritize here. If it does not, then we would look at the changes that you see here. So marking out crosswalk, making sure that it's a little bit shorter, enhancing the visibility of those flashing beacons that are there now, and adding those, and even a little median island to help the kids get across, and the crossing guard to not have to sort of stand in the middle of the street as they do now. Over here at 16th, we're looking at relocating the bus stop heading towards MLK Ave to just past the one-way side of 16th Street that goes north. So that'll make for a safer crossing for the kids who need to get back on the school bus or get off the school bus here. And then we're going to break up the signal so that there's a signal head here as well. And then a place for drivers to stop, and then a safer crossing if you need to get across the street there. So that's the recommendation for this area. Then we've got a curb extension on the north side of the street as well. Okay, at 17th, this is Bread for the City up here, and then the community center down here. Similar thing, marking out the parking spaces that are legal on the street, adding crosswalks here with an enhanced crosswalk that goes between Bread for the City and the community center with a rapid flashing beacon, and then the little island there, the concrete island in the street, similar to the one that you see at Fendel already near that senior center. Near now Fendel and 18th, not much changes over here. It's just marking out where it's legal to park. And then as you get toward the library and 18th Street, we did receive a request to look at a signal for 18th Street. So we'll take a look at that and see if that passes the test. But then otherwise, adding this little median here as well to help people get to and from the library. As you come past the library up towards Thelma Jones Way, this little sort of alleyway that feeds into the parking lot for the library, adding the crosswalk here. There's a bus stop that we didn't note on this bottom side, but that'll help connect the bus stop as well to the library. And then one thing that we're looking at, we see a lot of crashes coming out of this alleyway. And so this is one of those cases where, because there's a high number of crashes for the number of people using it, indicates there's some issue here. So one way that we are looking at fixing that issue is if we can extend this little island out here, and that makes Thelma Jones Way where you can only take a right to turn into it or a right to come out. So you couldn't make a left turn into Thelma Jones or out. That's to reduce crashes. I'd love to hear feedback about that. It seems like there's other ways to get into the same location where you need to go. We're trying to apply treatments that will reduce crashes here. As you head up here, this is 19th and 22nd. This is where it gets more residential. There's a couple apartment buildings. This is heading towards Marbury Plaza. Here, it's marking out the parking, adding a turn box here for 22nd Street to take the left turn. And then for the other crosswalk here, adding a little median island and the pedestrian signs as well. Okay. Now we're at Marbury Plaza. That's on this north side of the street. Here, to help make it shorter for the seniors to cross the street, we're looking at adding some of these little bump outs. That just shortens the distance that seniors have to cross and helps slow down drivers that are turning in and out of the driveways. Okay. All right, heading up the hill towards the park. So there's the existing crosswalk here that connects the hiker biker trail in the National Park Service park area. And so we're looking at enhancing that crosswalk, adding some visibility to it. So adding the flashing beacon here when people want to cross, making sure that people don't park too close to the crosswalk so you can see somebody if they are out there exercising and trying to cross the street there. The treatment that you see in the middle of the street, this kind of median, that we're putting into, so right now it's not marked as 2 lanes. I think people use it as 2 lanes a lot, as we saw when we were out there. So we're trying to mark out that space, make sure people know it's 1 lane, and really get them to slow down. We've got the speed camera there, so clearly there's a speed issue that you all have told us about before. But this will be effective as well at slowing people down. Here at Altamont, or Altamont, different ways people have pronounced it, but there's a potential to make, so we've heard a lot of speeding concerns on Altamont. There's a way that we could switch it to be 1 way going north towards Naylor Road, or we can keep it 2 way. But to address the speeding concerns that we heard from the residents on Altamont, looking at ways that we can do that through this project and sort of paired with this project. This is another location where we're looking at traffic light to see if it will qualify for it. And if it does, you'll see some changes in the design here. But if it doesn't, this is what generally we would do. So adding a little median island, helping people connect to the bus stops a little bit easier, and then creating a turn pocket for the apartment building, and then also the turn pocket to go up Altamont. That way you're waiting out of the way of traffic that's trying to keep going up the hill. We do see a lot of crashes, pedestrian crashes, and drivers, driver to driver, and then drivers hitting poles in this section. So really trying to slow people down and make it safer over here. As you keep going up the hill towards Skyland, this is Good Hope Court and 24th. The bus stops, just pushing them past the intersection. That's a common safety treatment that you'll see for buses, where we put it to the other side so people aren't trying to cross in front of the bus. We want them to cross behind the bus, excuse me, for safety. Then enhancing those crosswalks, like this one, especially with a median, and then adding a crosswalk here as well, so people can get to and from each bus stop. Okay, this is the area I hope we get more feedback on. We really tried to think of some way that that we could enhance this area and make it safer so people aren't getting trapped behind parked vehicles and buses. So here, this is Naylor and 25th, and then Marion Barry this way. So as you come up from 25th, it's about the same. As you're coming down from Naylor, what we're seeing is too many people are trying to use the left turn lane. This second one is too short to accommodate everybody that is trying to turn left. So what we're going to do is look at removing that so that it doesn't get blocked up, and then people then block up the intersection as you go further back on Naylor, and then work with our signal team to try and help that intersection function a bit better. Now, as you're coming away from Skyland, going down the hill towards MLK, there's a lot of people trying to go from Naylor through Marion Barry and then up Naylor again. So that's the primary kind of movement that we see. And so the short turn lane that we have there isn't really cutting it for the number of people who are trying to make that turn. So what we need is more space for people to make the right turn, to to line up to make that turn. So repurposing the space so that we have a full block, basically, that could be used for right turn, because we know with the number of people they're blocking the straight through lane anyway. And then combining the straight and through lane through the intersection here, and then allowing the left turn there as well. This is the other side of Naylor. For this, we're looking at making this a right turn lane as you head towards Alabama, so that you don't have to try and make the kind of U-turn at Alabama. And I think most people are kind of taking this right turn anyway. So you'd have a dedicated space to wait in that section. We heard a lot of feedback about the McDonald's over here and getting to and from the McDonald's. We'd have to evaluate some of the treatments that that came out of the conversations with the school and other folks who mentioned that. So we are looking into that, ways to make it a little bit safer and easier to get in and out the McDonald's, but that's to be determined. So we'll come back to you with that the next time we see you. So with this, you've got a through lane here that will then feed to Alabama, and then the second through lane as well will lead to Alabama on Marion Barry. On the north side, we heard a lot of folks, and I think the next slide shows it better. So people coming off of Alabama are getting caught behind people who are stopped here that park temporarily and are going into the bank and the CVS just to, quickly pick up things. So we're going to work with the developer to see if we can get more signs to let people know that the parking is free for the first 2 hours, and make sure that is really clear so that people don't have to block the lane. However, we see that there is still a pretty strong desire for short-term parking on street right at the curb if you just want to sort of go in, get what you need and get back out. So one of the things that we're proposing that we can look at, and we could even try it out in a temporary format before we make it permanent, is using this north curb lane and actually just making that short-term parking, whether that's 15 minutes, 10, 15, 30, whatever works best. And then from Alabama, making a single right turn lane. So there's no confusion about what lane to be in to not get blocked. And that lane, you could turn right to either Town Center Drive to get back to the Aldi and the Starbucks, or you can go straight, or I guess sort of right onto Marion Barry. That way you can continue down and still have access that way. We would close off the existing right turn lane. Not a whole lot of people are using it as it is. I think a lot of people use the intersection just past this location to get into the shopping center if that's where they're trying to go. So since we don't see a whole lot of turns there, it'd be more efficient and easier to align drivers so that you're not in the wrong lane and then end up confronted with a curb extension or somebody parked in the curbside lane. So that's the end of our corridor here. We need your feedback. We have an online feedback form and an online map. This is the website down here. You can take an in-depth look if you're not ready to respond today. If you want to talk to us in person and get more details, you can meet us at Anacostia Library in the large meeting room again on Saturday from 11 a.m. To 12:30. And then after the meeting's over, after we finish with Q&A, we'll add a Title VI form link to the chat. So as a recipient of federal assistance, DDOT must ensure that all its programs, activities, and public meetings are conducted in compliance with the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This act ensures non-discrimination based on race, color, or national origin. The Title VI public meeting participant questionnaire is used to obtain information to help DDOT ensure that we are informing the public and conducting our meetings in a non-discriminatory manner in compliance with Title VI. We appreciate anyone who's willing to fill out and complete the form. We've provided a link that you'll see in the chat. And thank you for your participation. That really does help us know who we are reaching out to, who we're getting at these meetings, and who we need to do a little bit more work to involve. So with that, I can stop sharing and I'll reshare if we have specific questions, but I wanted to go any questions that we have either in the chat or from the audience. Okay. I see a hand up from Miss Julia. Are we able to unmute her? Okay, you should be able to speak.
Oh, great. Thanks so much. Hi, Christine. Thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it. Just checking. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I am walking back from the metro. So I had two questions. One is, what is the possibility of bike lanes? I saw that was some of the feedback from residents. I am a cyclist and I cycle up and down Good Hope, and it's, pretty terrifying, I think is the right word. So I would just love to understand the possibility of bike lanes being installed. And then the other is more of a comment. So especially for 15th and 16th, I'm not quite sure when you're going to be looking at the data for those signals, new additional signals or improvements. And I just wanted to make note that DDOT has a separate bus lane project that is going to change the direction of W Street and B Street that feed into 16th Street and 15th Street. And so when those changes are made, I anticipate that there will be more traffic, or at least different traffic patterns, using 15th and 16th to get to, you know, wherever residents are at W and V Street. So I would just encourage you to either take that change that I believe is coming in 2024 into effect, or you know, at least make note that that is coming and could change the traffic patterns there.
Sure, thank you. Yeah. Relative to the traffic patterns, we will look at existing data and collect that data um, new. And of course, we want to avoid the holidays and make sure that schools are in session and Congress is in session. There's a whole list of criteria that we use to make sure that we're trying to get it on a pretty typical, what a typical day would look like. But yes, thank you for that comment. We will look at also the modeling from that project and try and link the two. We can do that in the modeling software that we have. So if more trips are expected to go on different streets, we can see that and then accommodate that or account for that in the signal review. So as for the bike lane question, we are currently not able to do bike lanes in Ward 8. That's a decision that's above my head, my pay grade. That is something between folks higher up at DDOT and council. I think we would all like to. We would love to see the network expand across DC, but that's not something I can currently include in the project. Okay. Any other questions? Or Julia, did you have another question?
Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you. So just one follow-up to that. So am I understanding correctly that no bike lanes will be installed in Ward 8 anywhere until there is movement from Councilmember White and like the director of DDOT?
We did receive a petition and we sent that over to the council member's office so that he would see the interest in biking in Ward 8, and especially for Marion Barry Ave. We didn't hear anything back, but you know, we're happy to follow up and see if anything has changed on that front. I'll take a look at the chat. Yes, M Street is now in Ward 8. There was an existing project before it was in Ward 8 that was active and under design, and that has now been installed. This is M Street Southeast from Half Street. It's right in front of DDOT headquarters in the US DOT. So it's 11th Street to I think about half, or maybe it goes all the way to South Cap at this point. This is a protected bike lane along the south side of M Street Southeast. Yes, that's correct. The project was in progress before the switchover, so that is the reason for that. No, they are not at risk of removal, to my knowledge. Any other questions? I'm happy to hang on the line. Or if anyone wants to put anything else in the chat or has other questions. We can also add the website link in the chat as well. On there, you'll see a web link to an online map. You can look at all these treatments in depth and zoom in to each of these. Can I send the petition that we sent to Councilmember White? Yes, I can forward that to you. If you can send me an email, I'll add my email in the chat as well. It's christine.mayer@dc.gov. Okay. Anyone else have any further questions? I'll hang on the line. You all can feel free to drop off if you have all the information that you need. We'll hang on until about 7:30 if anyone else comes in. Naylor and Good Hope, the bus stop concrete pad is high. Okay, creates a bump. All right, I'll take a look at that. With maybe our asset management folks can take a look. Is this the north side of Naylor? Like the 25th and Naylor, or is this the south side that leads to Alabama? Away from Alabama. Okay. All right. I'll take a look at that. Thank you. Guess I'll reshare the title slide if anyone new comes in. Okay. Did everybody leave? The attendees gone.
We have one more person still on.
Okay. Okay. I see. Shepherd Branch Trail. I'm not sure the status of that project. Preston, are you aware?
I'm not sure, but I can follow up.
Yeah, we can follow up with maybe link to if there's a project website on our website as well. But I think there was some money in the budget for it. Build it out. Yeah, there's a great trail network in Ward 8. Oh, perfect. From Brent, yes, great trails exist, but MLK and Good Hope is seriously dangerous for cyclists. Heard.
And Brent, I know you joined late. If there's anywhere you want us to go back in the slide presentation,
Yeah.
I'm sure Christine would be super happy to go back through the segments.
Yeah, sure. Okay, take a quick review. Right. Head through. Right. I won't restart the entire thing, but I'll just go straight to the concepts. All right. So starting at Minnesota, we've got two options for safer operations here. For the right turn coming off of Minnesota, we can either do a curb extension, a little bump out here to shorten the crossing distance, or we can put in a median island to make sure that that people aren't making the left turns illegally from this sort of right turn only lane. For was it eastbound Marion Barry, establishing a left turn lane so that people can wait out of through moving traffic and have a way to get onto Minnesota a little bit safer. Coming through the intersection, blocking off so people can't park, or it's not as easy to park through the intersection and block traffic, but instead marking out where people can park just past the intersection and prior to it on the other side. At 15th Street, we're looking at a signal and a way to make the crosswalk safer for Ketchum. If the signal study doesn't find that it's appropriate for that the intersection isn't appropriate for a signal, then we look at the treatments that you see here with like a marked curb extension, a little concrete median island, and some enhanced signage there for visibility. For 16th Street, adding a crosswalk here, just before you get to where the current signal is in the bus stop. That way, for the bus stop on the westbound side of the street, kids that get off the bus there need to get back on to get home, have a safer place to cross that's not sort of within the existing bus stop area in the sort of laundromat area that we've heard a lot of and some concerns with. Adding curb extensions here or little bump outs. Yeah, thank you. And that way, we can sort of add another signal, a little light so people know where to cross, and we can stop traffic for people trying to cross in a little bit easier way that sort of simplifies everything. Up at 17th Street near Bread for the City, I'm looking at adding crosswalks there, adding a median island, and then some bump outs here. We need to make sure, of course, this works with the bus movements that are going to be coming to 17th Street, but enhancing that crosswalk, especially the one that connects the same side of Bread for the City with the community center, with a little flashing beacon where you press the button and you can cross the street whenever it's clear for people to stop for you. Between Fendel and 18th, as you're heading towards the library, not much really changes. We're just marking out where it's legal to park, and then making sure that where it's not legal, we're hashing that out and adding some kind of hardened barrier to it so people aren't illegally parking. We are looking at a signal for 18th Street to see if we can enhance safety that way. And then at the crosswalk that's existing, adding a median island, a little concrete island, so that people have a safe place to wait in the middle as they're waiting to cross both lanes of traffic. Heading up towards Thelma Jones, we're looking at adding a crosswalk here right at the intersection and potentially blocking off the alleyway so that you can only make a right in and a right out. We see a lot of crashes here for the amount of people using it. So one way to reduce crashes is to sort of make that so you can't make the left turns in and out we tend to see the crashes happen because of those. So with this, adding the crosswalk, adding a median island, and then adding a flashing beacon as well. That'll help people cross. Up here between 19th and 22nd, this is where it starts to get more residential as you're heading up towards Marbury Plaza. Adding crosswalks here, marking parking on the north side of the street. Adding a left turn lane for 22nd Street. So there's a little pocket there. You can wait out of the way of moving traffic. We can add concrete median islands to some of these crosswalks as well. And as you're up here near Marbury Plaza, we've got a marked curb extension here that we're looking at doing in concrete, and that'll shorten the crosswalk for the seniors that live up here. Adding some signage. Generally, what you'll see across the corridor is signage and retro reflective backplates that helps people be more aware of the traffic signals that are there, so they're not running the red light just because maybe they can't see it. As you come up the hill towards the hiker biker trail, this is the crosswalk that currently serves both sides. So adding a concrete island and then adding the beacon, the same kind of pedestrian beacon, making sure that it's clear that it is only one travel lane in each direction, and marking parking, and then a median for that section to hopefully reduce some of the speeding that we see through the area. In the parking, we're going to break these up. Of course, there's a couple hydrants along the way, but we don't want the parking, if it's not used well, to be used as a passing lane. So we're looking at breaking that up. And there is absolutely the potential to add bike racks or micromobility corrals in these areas as well. Altamont's another location. We're looking at a signal. We see high rates of crashes in this area because of speeding and some due to turns and hitting poles and things along the street. So looking at a signal, looking at ways to make it a little bit slower through this area, and then establishing a left turn lane for people to go up Altamont. Altamont could be turned to one way. We have that option. We can do that through this project. But that would be one way heading towards Naylor instead of away. We've heard from a lot of residents on Altamont that there's a lot of speeding issues for people making the right off of Altamont and then coming down the hill very quickly towards Marion Barry. So trying to look at ways to make that safer. So if it doesn't qualify, these are the treatments that that it will look like generally. If it does qualify, then you'll see a couple more changes to that intersection. Up here by Good Hope Court and 24th, adding crosswalks here and moving the bus stop just past the crosswalk. That way, when people are getting off the bus, they're not trying to walk in front of the bus. We see some pedestrian crashes happen from those kind of conditions. So if we move the bus past the crosswalk, people can get off the bus and head towards the back. That way they're not at risk of being hit if they're in a crosswalk. So adding the median island, concrete island there as well to help with that crossing, and then marking the crosswalk on the other side as well. Adding the flashing beacons across the corridor, you'll see the flashing beacons where we have bus stops primarily, because we know that more people are trying to access the bus than sort of a typical crosswalk. Up here near Naylor Road, we've got a couple changes here. Probably the most notable is the right turn lane is not currently functioning as it should. So what we want to do to suit the number of people trying to make the right turn is to actually block that off, and then have a single right turn lane that stretches the entire block. So we'll use that sort of northernmost lane, the lane closest to Skyland, as the right turn lane, and then the second lane would be the through lane, and then you can make a left turn from that lane as well. And what we heard from people was the through lane often gets blocked by people taking the right turn. And then if you're in the through lane, sometimes the way that it's aligned, you end up behind a stopped bus, and then you're blocking the intersection, and it's generally feels kind of unsafe. So to better align people who are just moving past, we want to point them in the direction of a lane of traffic that they can get through and pass the bus stop safely. Here at Naylor, looking at the turns and the movements that we see, we're adding a dedicated right turn here. As you approach Alabama, you can make the right in your own lane to Naylor here, and then head south to Alabama if you'd like, or continue on, however. And then a single through lane as well. To suit the number of people and to help serve the number of people making the left turn, we're looking at adding a dedicated left turn here, as well as using the existing, that's a straight, I think it's an all movement lane. You can go through, you can make a right turn or a left turn. So making that so that you can make a left turn from either lane as well, since we've got so many people making that turn at all hours of the day. One key thing that we do want people's feedback on is we see a lot of desire to park curbside to go right into the CVS and the bank. So we want to make sure that there's an option for how to deal with that. So we can take the curbside lane on the north side and make that parking so people can more easily access the CVS from the curbside, while also working with the developer who built Skyland to enhance their signage and make sure people know that that they can park for 2 hours for free in the parking lot. And then up here at Alabama, there's a lot of traffic conditions. Again, people parking on the curbside at CVS tends to block the right lane. If you're coming down Alabama, heading through to Marion Barry, the rightmost lane gets blocked because, again, people are going to the CVS and bank. So if we do make that parking, and we can try this even in the short term, putting in a curb extension and then blocking off the rightmost turn lane, so that there's a single lane and you can make your turn to Town Center Drive, or you can go and make the right to Marion Barry Ave from the same lane. And then hopefully that helps with the confusion and the traffic congestion in the area as well. Because we didn't see a whole lot of people making the right turn from Marion Barry, that's almost kind of a U-turn onto Alabama Avenue. Just removing that anyway to make it a little bit safer for pedestrians as they're crossing, so they don't have to deal with so many turn conflicts as they're crossing the street here. So again, we've got our meeting at Saturday at the library, at Anacostia Library, in the large meeting room from 11 a.m. to 12:30. There's a link in the chat to our Title VI form, and that's about all.
And Christine, timeline-wise, I believe we're targeting this for implementation by the end of next year. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. Yeah, we want to start construction hopefully in the summer of next year at the latest. And then it should only take a couple months to build. So we should be able to finish sometime later next year. But if we experience a really tough winter, or, you know, who knows, it may go into 2025. Okay, I'm seeing your comments in the chat. We're noting those. Bollards installed in the no parking zone on Good Hope in front of Kitchen Savages. Okay, take a look at that location. That may be just past our study area, but I can pass that along. If it's not our project, it's someone else's, and we can pass that along. Blocks the buses. Oh, yeah. Okay. That one's a little bit past us as well, but I'll pass that along to the project manager. Yep. Yeah, thank you for coming. Yeah, we'll try and get this in as soon as we can. We just need to make sure that we get as much feedback and we hear from everybody as much as we can. All right. With that, I think we can close up the meeting. I don't see anybody new that's joined. So, all right. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you. All right. So we can go ahead and conclude, and thank you everybody for coming.